Daf Samech something. Samech. The tape recorder was inferior, but I'm trying to save it to the mic, so I have two identical setups here tonight. I was told I was too loud, so we always. So we might actually move to the high school based medrash in the future. We'll see. In the meantime, I haven't asked the mashgiach permission yet, so we'll stay here for this evening. We are on Daf.
Such a thing as being too loud in the basement. I've never heard of such a thing.
To maintain the proper decorum here. We are on Samach Bava and Beis. We're up to where it says Tmuras Chatos, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines, 7 lines down, excuse me. Tmuras Chatos. Now, Tmuras Chatos, as I told you last night, just before we broke up, the Meichal Maim says that this whole sugya is talking about the comparison between chatos, and the chatos here are chatos which have the klutz factor figured in, meaning that one has misappropriated one's animals for a chatos, and korban pesach. So the first example is Tmuras Chatos. You had a chatos which was a male. Right, you took a male animal to be a chatos, whereas chatos for plebeians should be females, and he made a tmura bounced off of that. So, and that says the Gemara, let's compare that to Pesach. The Spalgun, we have a machlokas. Hey, Rabbi Shlosha Sar, if he did a tmura on the korban Pesach on the 13th. Now it's not the 14th, it's the 13th day of this one. Rabbi Zira mer tmuraso kreva shlomim. Rabbi Zira says the Tamura of that Korban Pesach is sacrificed as Shlomim. Why? Because it's not yet a Pesach, right? That means it's not yet a Pesach. By definition, the Tamura is a Shlomim. Because the Korban Pesach is not yet a Korban Pesach. It's only a Shlomim on the way to becoming a Pesach. So too the Tamura is a Shlomim. By extension, we say that the Tamura of a misappropriated Chatos also is not yet, it's not a Chatos. Because it's a zohar. A zohar can't be a chatos. What is it? I don't know. But maybe at best it's an ola. And therefore the tmura bounced off of it can also be brought as an ola as well. However, Rabbi Yitzchak says, ain't tmura so kreva shlomim. Rabbi Yitzchak says that the tmura of a Pesach on Yom Kippur cannot be brought as shlomim. So what do you have to do with that tmura? You have to graze it until it gets a mum, and to then redeem it and use its money to buy shlomim. Why? Because it's a tmura of a Pesach, and tmura of Pesach before Pesach. Tmura Pesach after Pesach, of course, is shlomim, because the Pesach after Pesach is shlomim. But tmura of a Pesach before Pesach, you have to graze to get the mum, because it's not a val kedusha. Comes to use the lingo mikach kedusha dechuya, from a kedusha which is not a val kedusha. So therefore, you have to graze to get the mum and then redeem it. So to a chatos, if you made a chatos out of a zohar, it's not a valid chatos. So the tmura made out of that is also not a valid tmura, meaning that it's messed up. It's not an ola, it's not a chatos, it's not nothing, and therefore either you got to graze it, or probably since it's a tmura's chatos, you have to actually do what? You have to starve it to death. Okay? So, says the Gemara further. New case, another klutz factor case. Not yet. Chata shemesu bailim. What about if you have a chata shemesu bailim, a chatas whose owner died, yamus? So then, generally speaking, we say that the chatas has to die. However, what about if you again, the klutz factor coming in, you made a zohar into a chatos? This is not an akeva, it's not a proper chatos, it's a zohar chatos, and the owner died. So what do you do with that? So it says more kaidamar Rabbi Hila b'Shem Shmuel. Just as Rabbi Hila said, name was Shmuel. Mesu baila b'shloishosar. What if the owner of a korban pesach drops in on the 13th? Gufo korev shlomim. The gufo, the body. Well, the korban pesach, not the body of a dead person. The korban pesach is sacrificed as a shlomim. Why? Because it never became a proper Pesach. Here too, the Chatos whose owner died, according to that perspective, says it wasn't about Chatos, a regular Chatos, a full-blown Chatos, where the owner died, so of course it has to graze, it has to die, it has to be starved to death. But in this case, where the Chatos was a Zohar, was a male Chatos, which is unheard of, so therefore in this case we say that it can be brought as an Ola. Okay? Same idea. Vilna, now here the Mechamayim throws in a word, Vilna lo amar b'Yud. Why didn't we talk about where the owner drops down on the 14th day of Nisan? So it says, everybody agrees. But Pesach, once it's suitable to sacrifice on Pesach, meaning the 14th day of Nisan, and Gufo Korb Shlamim, it cannot itself be brought as a Shlamim, rather it must be grazed until it gets a mum, because it actually had a time where it's suitable to be sacrificed as a Pesach. What about what do we do with the Chatos, which is more than a year old? Now, according to Mechamayim, you actually, the klutz factor comes into effect here. You actually sanctify the korban to be a chatos after it's a year old, and that's a no-no, because the chatos must be made a chatos during its first year of life. So chatos shavar shnasa, b'shiva shnasa. That case, just like Rav Chisda said, by a korban which became a korban Pesach, which also must be less than a year old, which became more than a year old, between Pesach or Bishul Sheni, that's no good. Rabbi Hila B'Shem Rabbi Yechid said, B'Shibur is man kaparoso. This is a complicated case. We learned it back on Daf Lamed Ches and Lamed Tes. I'm not going to go into it right now, but there with Lamed Hey, Lamed Vav. There the Gemara, we spend some time defining what we're talking about here. But the bottom line is that a chata, a shlami, and a Pesach, the Pesach after a certain time no longer is a kosher Pesach. Either after it's a year old or you're miskaper with another one, whatever they're referring to. So to here, we say the same thing, that in our case over here, was just like over there by a chatos she'ivra shnasa, it sacrifices the shlami. A chatos, which ivra shnasa also is sacrificed as an oila. Again, just like a pesach she'ivra shnasa sacrifices the shlami, so to a chatos she'ivra shnasa is sacrificed as an oila. Now, what about another one? B'shav davanim says bori. What about if you lost the chatos and then it was found whole, without blemish? So in that case we say mutter. What does mutter mean? So he says that we'd say that that it sounds like you're allowed to sacrifice in itself as an olah. Again, you lost the chatos. In the meantime, you're miskaper with another chatos. Then you found the original chatos, so then you can bring it as an olah. Says the Gemara, no. Rabbi Yasib B'Shem Rabbi Yelon said, "Ein l'cha Pesach korb shlamim el shava v'nimtza sha." Oh, actually, he agrees. He's explaining. Rabbi Yasib says, "Ein l'cha Pesach gufo korb shlamim." There's no Pesach which should be sacrificed as a shlamim el shava v'nimtza me'achar shkiv b'bayim, unless it was lost the entire time that the kapara of the korban Pesach was going on. So too, if you have a korban chatos which got lost, now it's obviously not talking about a true chatos. Again, it's talking about a chatos zochar, because the true chatos, when it got lost, you either have to graze it, or you have to starve it to death. But we're talking about here a chatos zochar, so it wasn't a proper chatos to begin with. And then it got lost in the meantime in the scarper with another chatos. So when it gets found afterwards, you can actually sacrifice it as an olah. It became at that point it became lost its kedusha to that extent that it can actually be sacrificed in olah if you compare it to a korban pesach. Says the Gemara balasmu. What about if you lose the korban and it's not found bari? It's not found without blemish. It's found with balasmu. So it says more. Wait a minute. Rabbi Zir Bar Kum Rabbi Yossi. It doesn't make sense to talk about when he found it about mum. What's the shaila? Unless here the next word, the Shari Torah Yisrael changed it. He changed it nicely. I think it's a good change. The only time we can talk about that it found about mum, whether you can bring it as a korban or not, is if the mum is a mum over. a temporary mum. Because if the mum is a permanent mum, you certainly can't sacrifice it as a carbon after it's found. Well, if it's a mum over, so then it's the same status as a carbon which is found when it's without blemish. Right? It's a blemish which passes. So I'm really on a server cane. I also hold the same thing. In other words, of course, the Balmuz I talk about, we're talking about a chatas zohar, which got lost, was found after your miskarpa with a real chatas, then it itself can be brought as an olah. Hivish pischov avad. What if you set aside your Pesach? No, new sugya. What if you set aside your Pesach and got lost? You set aside the other Pesach and instead, Lois speak Lakiv as a shame. You did not have time to sacrifice the second one. Achnim Sarishon before you found the first one. They're both standing in front of you. Istani Tani, those who learn Mitzvah Lakiv is Arishon, you should sacrifice the first one you chose. Istani Tani, those who said Mitzvah Lakiv is a shame, you should sacrifice the second one, which is the one which more closer proximity to this carbon time. Vitani Shmuel came, what did Shmuel teach us? You choose the nicer one, you sacrifice it. The second one you have to graze until it gets a move. And then you sell it. The Yavi, the only time Shlomim and bring for its money Shlomim. Second one can't be brought Shlomim on its own because it once was a candidate to be a Korban Pesach, but it may be you sell, you graze it till it gets a mum, and you bring a Shlomim when B'Yud Vav. On the 16th day of Nisan, obviously on Chol Hamoed, not in Pesach itself. Rabbi Lezer, no! Who has no Korev Shlomim B'Yud Vav? It itself can be brought a Shlomim on the 16th day of Nisan. Since, even though it was a candidate, since it became Ois Pesach, so therefore it itself can be brought as a carbon on the 16th day of Nisan. Asked Rabbi Lezer, the Rebbe, Rabbi Lezer. We have a brisa which indicates that Rebbe holds like Rabbi Lezer, that it itself can be brought as a Shlomim. Shmuel Tinasa B'Shita saying, Shmuel learned that Rebbe is saying it in the Shita. The Tanya Rebbe Omer, Rebbe says, now this is talking about a chatos, this brisa. It says here, the Lieberman, I should say, adds in the words, Vashnia Tamus, if you have two chatos, the second one dies. Same case, but by chatos, second one dies. Otani Rebbe Omer, Shashnia Tamus, the Chachomrim ain't chatos, Mesa, should say, chatos doesn't die, El Shanim says, Me'achash Kibu Barbailim. The chatos, if you had two chatos, both in front of you, at the time you used one, so Rebbe holds the second one must die. Rabbanan, the second one you can graze till you get a boom, then redeem it and use its money to buy an olah. They hold, when must the chatas die? If you had two for the same chait, only if the second one was lost at the time you do the first one. But if they're both around, the second one can be grazed and you can bring a korban olah for it. Now, since Rebbe says that where the two are extant at the time you sacrifice one, the second one must die, then we have a principle. Kol shebechatos mesa bepesach korev shlomim. Anytime where a chatas must die, it undergoes such a radical alteration in status, it must die, you can't graze it, gets a moon. So then by Pesach, it automatically defaults down to a shlomim. And that's a Rebbe Masolik Rebbe Lezer, that you can bring the second Pesach, which you had as a spare at the time you sacrificed the first one, on Yud Vav itself as a shlomim. You don't have to graze it. So that's a general principle. Anything which by a chatas dies, by a Pesach is brought a shlomim. Anything which by a chatas must graze, by a Pesach must graze as well. That's why about a normal chatas. By a chatas zochar, in the case we had before, that principle doesn't apply. By a chatas zochar, anytime the chatas zochar can be sacrificed as an olah, then by Pesach can be sacrificed as a shlomim. Okay, by a regular chatas, anytime it must die, by Pesach is brought a shlomim. Anytime it must graze, by Pesach grazes. By a chatas which was mismanaged, so then if it itself can be brought as an olah, by Pesach can be brought as shlomim, and vice versa. And if it itself must graze, then by Pesach it has to graze as well. Okay? Says furthermore, this is still Rabbanan speaking, money which is set aside for chatos, doesn't have to be thrown to Yam HaMelech, which is the same thing as killing the money, because let me get enough from it. Only if it's found after the Bailim already achieved Kapar in another one. Hamafish Nekeva Lepischa. Somebody decided Nekeva for his Pesach, which is not right. It has to be a male. Ozar ben Shtei Shleim, or a male which is 2 years old. Yirachi Stoiv must be grazed, be mocher and sold. The Yiplu Dom and the dove, and the money falls to a Nadava. Hamavish Pischlomei, somebody sets aside a Pesach and he dies. Lo Yivenu B'no Achrov. L'Shem Pesach, his son can't bring it afterwards for the purpose of Pesach. L'Shem Shlomim, only for Shlomim. Now says the Gemara, you should know our Mishnah, where is talking about Masnisa La'achar Kapara. Our Mishnah, which says that you have to you bring its money, in the Reish it said in the third line of the Mishnah, V'yiplu dama v'lenadava, the money goes to Nadava. Why should the money go to Pesach? You set it aside for Pesach erroneously, but it let them on once you graze it and it gets a mum, so give the money to Pesach. So he says, sorry about we already miskaper, obviously. And then there should be this big typo here. It should be here, Delok Rabbi Shimon. All the Mefarshim change it. Most of the Mefarshim change it. In fact, Lieberman says that there's a Ksaviyah which says that the Delok Rabbi Shimon. And there's not like Rabbi Shimon the Tani we learn, Koinela Pesach Teirot Shetistoy, before Pesach. And if you have a duplicate Pesach or an improper Pesach, it grazes until it gets a move. But the and then you sell it, Pesach, and you bring for its value of Pesach. Lachar Pesach, after Pesach, Tavo Shlomim, the Gleeman changed the gears, it should be Yavi Shlomim. After Pesach, you graze it until it gets a mum, and then you bring for its value the Shlomim instead, which is our Mishnah. That's Rabbana. Our Mishnah like Rabbana. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Kohen LePesach Timachar Shalobim. It's obviously not like a Mishnah. Shimon says if it's before Pesach, sell without a mum. It was improperly consecrated. 2 years old. It's a female. It's got to be a male under in its first year. So therefore, sell even without a mum. Lachar Pesach, after Pesach, Tova Shlomim in itself can be broader Shlomim. So obviously, our Mishnah is not a king because our Mishnah says you always graze. Now, continuing on, this is to the end of the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah says that if it was suitable for one fellow for a Pesach, right, and then the guy died, so his son can't bring the Shem Pesach or Shem Shlomim. Why? Because locate Savina Meimar. I understand. Then we say, wait. It brings Shlomim. So let me ask you, how can you say this? We just said if the guy dies on Yudalid, we said it before the Mishnah. If the guy dies on Yudalid, so you can't make the Pesach into you can't make the korban into Shlomim because it already was suitable to be a Pesach. So you could say he died on Yud Gimel because it never became Pesach that way. But our Mishnah doesn't draw a distinction. So locate Tzarvina Meimah that we say Kol Shenira Loikari VePesach, anything which is suitable to be sacrificed on Pesach as a Pesach, and Gufo Korb Shleim can't be for Shlomim. Says you're right. But the way you have to explain this is Shifri Shmos. It's not where the Pesach itself is being brought to Shlomim. Rather, you actually never set aside a korban. You set aside money. And that money can be used to buy Shlomim if it was, if the guy, the original owner died, as no longer around to bring his Pesach. Okay, a Pesach she'isarva bizvachim, a Pesach which got mixed into other korbanos. Kulon yirat she'istavo, they have to all graze till they get a move. V'moch, and then they're sold. V'yovid bin mea yofish sh'boim means that. Over the mea yofish sh'boim means that you obviously one animal was the best of it, and you don't know if that best animal was a Pesach or another korban. So you bring the value of the best animal in the lot as a Pesach and as whatever other kind of korban was in that mixture. And you lose whatever extra value you're expending because of this procedure from your own funds at home. What if your Pesach got mixed up with Bechoros, which can only be eaten by Kohanim? They're a group of Kohanim, let them eat everything the night of Pesach. They'll eat them all the korbanos together, and that way they'll be eating the Pesach properly. You're not allowed to buy Shemitah fruit with Meiser Sheni money. Why is that? Because you might not finish the Shemitah fruit before the time of Biur, when you must eradicate it, because there's no more left of the animals in the field. And if so, you're causing Meiser Sheni money to go to waste. Rabbi Yossi Omer b'machlokas. Rabbi Yossi says it's a machlokes, because we had the same machlokes by Truma. One mandam holds you can't use Meiser Sheni money to buy Truma, because not everybody can eat it, only Kohanim. The other mandam holds you can use Meiser Sheni money to buy Truma, even though you're limiting the amount of people who can eat it. So too, you should have the same machlokes by Shemitah. Says Mar, no. Rabbi Yossi said Divrei HaKoli. Everybody agree that you can't buy Shemitah fruit, even though you can buy Truma fruit with Meiser Sheni money. Why is that? Truma's reasoning. Those who eat Truma are diligent, and they will make sure to consume all the Truma, so the Meiser Sheni money will not have gone to waste, as it will all be put into Truma, which will be consumed by Kohanim. However, Shemitah is not like that. Anybody can buy Shemitah fruit, not just Kohanim, and not everybody is reason, so therefore they might not make sure to be diligent and eat all the food up before the time of Biur comes. So Rabbi Chia asked for a Gemara. Didn't we learn our Mishnah? If the Pesach gets mixed up Bechoros, if it's a group of Kohanim, they're allowed to eat it. V'tani lo, we learn concerning this. Yochlu kichomash men, you can eat like the more severe among them. Meaning, Bechor can be eaten for 2 days and 1 night. Pesach can only be eaten for 1 night. So you're allowed. You make the korban, you make it as if they're all korban Pesach, you can only eat it for 1 night. So the Gemara, the way Lieberman explains the Pesach of Meir Arik, the Tau Torah, he says that the question of the Gemara is that Lemaisa, by Truma, you could say Kohanim are Zrizim. And they're much more Zoris even than Meiser Sheni, of course, because Truma is holier. So therefore, they'll make sure to eat all the Truma within the allotted time, and make before it rots, and make sure the Meiser Sheni money won't go to waste. But the standard of Zrizos of Kohanim is normally that of Bechor, which is 2 days and 1 night, and you're asking them to upgrade beyond their normal Zrizos. How can you make sure that they're going to go do it quicker than usual? In other words, the Truma is anyway requires more Zrizos Meiser Sheni. So of course, if the Nizar is Truma for Truma, as Truma, there's certainly going to be Nizar for Truma's taken from Meiser Sheni money. But Karbanos of Bechor is normally the standard default Jesus which they have. Who tells you they're going to be so Zoris to make sure to eat all those Bechoros the night of Pesach? So Amarlesi said, when you deal with eating Pesach at its time, Pesach night, we're diligent in doing that, Truma, like eating Truma at its time. There's a special reason, so Chipazayin, the night of Pesach, to eat it properly. Teil Chaysh knows it's true. I'll prove to you that there's a special reason tonight of Pesach. The Tznina, we learned, ain't selling basar batzul beitzah kadeshi yatzulu. You're not allowed to roast meat, onions, or eggs on Erev Shabbos unless they'll be completed before Shabbos begins. But that's not true because you might come to rake the coals. But it's not true. You're allowed to put the Korban Pesach into the oven right before Shabbos begins, where Pesach comes under Shabbos, and we're not afraid you're going to stir the coals. Why is that? Because there's reason by Pesach, special reasons to make sure to do it the right and proper way. If you have a group which lost its Pesach, now this is here Klutz factor shines. A group which lost its Pesach. So they said to one of their number. They said to another. They said to one of the people. They said, "Go find a lost Pesach and shecht it for us." He went and found it and shechted. In the meantime, they themselves bought another korban and shechted it. So then, Im shelo nishchar rishon, if there's a shechter first, oichel mishelo, he eats from his. Ve'echli imo, they eat with him because they designated him their shliach. Im shelo en nishchar rishon, if there's a shechter first, hu echel mishelo, he eats from his own because he didn't join in them. Ve'echli mishelo, they eat from theirs. Ein dua ezem em nishchar rishon, we don't know which one shechted first. O sheshachlu shnei kachas, they both shechted simultaneously. Hu echel mishelo, he eats from his, because he never was dependent on them, but they don't know if they can eat, because they made themselves dependent on him, and shechted independently at the same time, and we don't know which was shechted first. So v'shalem yaitzel beis hasrei, v'emein ochlim mimo, they can't eat from his, nor can they eat from their own. V'shalem yaitzel beis hasrei, you have to burn theirs. But there's them beis hasrei, because the zrikas adam was done properly no matter what. And if he said to them, if I am late, now he now makes himself contingent on them by saying, if I come back late, shecht on me. And if he went and found and shecht, but they didn't make themselves contingent on him. He went looking and said, if I'm late, shecht for me. Otherwise, I'll shecht for myself. So now, and he went and found the animal and shechted first. And they went and shechted on their own. So he went, before they got around to his contingency, he chapped the rein and shechted. If theirs was shechted, there was shechted first. Then they ate from theirs, and since he was contingent on them, he eats with them. If he shechted his shechted first, he avoided the contingency. He can eat from his own, but since they were not contingent on him, they eat from they ate from theirs. If you don't know which was shechted first, or they both shechted simultaneously, they eat from theirs, and he may not eat with them. Why? Because he doesn't know, they were not contingent on him, so they can eat theirs. But he doesn't know. He was contingent, he doesn't know which one was done first. So he cannot eat from either of them. And you have to burn his. And he doesn't make Pesach Sheni. If they both said to each other, we're contingent on each other. So then, they're all shechted, they all eat for the first one to be shechted of the two. If you don't know which is shechted first, they both have to be burned, and nobody gets Yikor Pesach that year. Nobody said anything to anybody else. And everybody's independent. So nobody's responsible for anybody else, and each one can eat from their own korban. If you have two groups that their psarim got mixed up, so each group takes one guy from the other group. And these take one from the other group. One guy from one group comes to the other group. Same idea, and another guy from the other group comes to this group. This is how they say. If this is our Pesach, you remove you from yours, and make you subscribe with ours. If this is your Pesach, we remove ourselves from ours, the other one, we join in with you. If you have 5 groups of 5 people each, so each chabura sends one guy to the other 4, and they do this round robin 5 times. If it's 10-10, they do that. Now getting back to the ratio where they talk and make conditions with each other. On Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Nosson, now which it says that even though the Pesach must be burnt, the Pesach of that year, that's like Rabbi Nosson. So Rabbi Nosson, Yotze was Rika without eating. Tani Bekapar, we learned, gewaltige words. It's good for wise people to be silent. Certainly fools should be silent. Had these people not said anything in the Mishnah, I contingent on you, you're contingent on me, like it says, everybody think would have been hunky-dory. V'chein Shlomo Omer, so to Shlomo said, Gam Evil Machrish, even a silent idiot, Chacham Yechoshev will be considered to be smart. V'chein Tzorach Lomar Chacham Machrish, goes without saying that a smart silent type is the best of all. So we all emulate Calvin Coolidge. Okay, Halacha Yud. Shnayim Shenisarvu Pitzchem. Two individuals whose psachim got mixed up with each other. Now, they can't do the trick of the previous commissioner because you can't leave the Pesach without a subscriber. So what do? Each guy takes one guy, additional guy with him. Now this guy takes one guy with him from the shuk, and this guy takes another guy with him from the marketplace. Same thing over again. We each take a guy, and we send one member of the chabura, now of two, to the other chabura. The kachuem is the same Shalia Pesach. This is my Pesach. Yodecha mishuchos mishacha. Your hands are drawn away from yours. Yisrael Shali, you join mine. You shachol Pesach, and this is your Pesach. Yodi mishuchos mishali. My hands go away from mine. Yisrael shachol, and I join yours. So the same idea. What you say, it's just with two people. Now, why is it structured this way? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yochanan like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tninon, Tamon, we learned En Shachtim Pesach Al Yochid, Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi Matir. Our mission is going like Rabbi Yehuda, because otherwise, if we're one-on-one, I could say to you, if this is my Pesach, let it be mine. If it's not, if it's yours, be makna to me. And you will say the opposite to me. Yet our mission requires two people on each korban. It makes me take one guy from the shuk to join me as a subscriber of mine, and you to take a guy from the shuk to join a subscriber in yours, and then to do this mechanism of switching off, swapping the subscribers. So that must be like Rabbi Yehuda holds that each korban Pesach has to have a minimum of two people. Now, like Rabbi Yehuda says, you can even shach to one person. Now, going back to the previous Mishnah, some big typos here. Hashal Arba, not Arba, sir. Hashal Arba Lo. Then the previous Mishnah said if you have 5 groups of 5. What if one group only has 4? It's not going to work. Because each group has to, each group has to be said representatives to the other 4 groups. If you're missing one in one group, it's not going to work. So you have to have 5. Each group, as many groups as get mixed in, you have to have that minimum amount of people per group in the mixture. As says Gemara, taking out one of the words low, one of them superfluous. It's like Rabbi Yochanan to say like Rabbi Yehuda. Not our Rabbi Yehuda, the one we just mentioned. Rabbi Yehuda we just mentioned is I need 2 people on Korban Pesach. There's another Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that you always have to have one of the original members of the Chabur remaining on a Korban. So that's why you have to have groups of 5. If 5 groups get mixed in, so you have to have groups of 5, so one guy always remains the original possessor of the korban. Okay? Rabbi Yossi says, Kol Garmam Radi Rabbi Yehuda. This entire Mishnah obviously indicates it's Rabbi Yehuda, because the Seif of the Mishnah, Halacha Yud, he might have had 2 Mishnahs both together, as a matter of fact. Seif Halacha, as we just proved to you, the Seif of the Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda, the Tzniya Taman, and show this path to Yochid, the Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi Matir. I just proved to you from the Sefer of Halacha Yud, it's of course talking about Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says you need 2 people each Korban Pesach. So certainly the ratio is Rabbi Yehuda. You don't have to tell me the Chiddush that it's Rabbi Yehuda, because every Pesach has to remain with one member, it's original Korban. I could have told you it's Rabbi Yehuda from the Sefer. Okay, Yashikoyach told me that it's Rabbi Yehuda from the ratio as well. That was unnecessary information. Rest of Pesachim is a breeze. Erev Pesachim Samach LaMincha. Erev Pesach right before Mincha Liyochlo Damachi Yitechshach. A person should not eat until night falls. Fa'afilu Yisoni should be thrown. Even a poor person, Am Yisrael, Lo Yochlo Ad She'esav should not eat until he reclines. Lo Yivchu Sulo Me'arba Kos Shriyayin. He should not have less than 4 cups of wine. Fa'afilu Min Al-Tamchu, even after it's get them from the soup kitchen. Mas Nisa the Rabbi Yehuda. Yaakov, you ever learned Erev Pesachim? Not recently, huh? Oh. Well, it's very, very similar. Masisa Rabbi Yehuda, Tani, we learned Erev Pesach, Erev Shabbos, Mina Mincha L'Mala, Erev Shabbos from Mincha on, Lo Yitom Adam Klum, person not taste anything, Ad Shetechsho, till nightfall, Kadei Shiklayis to Shabbos B'Taiva. So he should enter Shabbos with the hunger. David Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi says, you continue eating our trosh umachim until you finish on your meal, no matter how late Friday afternoon that is. So our mission is clear, Rabbi Yehuda, that you have to stop earlier in the day. Mafsik in the Shabbos. What happens in your middle of the meal becomes Shabbos? You have a large meal Friday afternoon becomes Shabbos. So you have to stop. David Rabbi Yehuda, you have to bench. Rabbi Yossi Mafsik can go right on. Just bench whenever you finish your meal. Doesn't matter. They were sitting here Erev Shabbos in Akko. In such a meal, Shabbos became Shabbos. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said to Rabbi Chalafta, should we bench because it just became Shabbos? So he said to him, I am Rabbi Yossi, who said you don't have to stop. Well, every day, you like what I say better than what Rabbi Yehuda says. And how you prefer what Rabbi Yehuda said to me? You want to stop the meal in the middle? I only don't have to stop. Says the Gemara, you want to conquer the queen in the house? He said he came on himself. So maybe we shouldn't stop. So people don't think halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. All right, we won't stop. They didn't move from there till they passed in taka halacha Rabbi Yossi. However, Rabbi Shmuel said, "Zudivrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi." That's Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi opinion. But we paskin like neither of them. We paskin if you're in the middle of your meal Friday afternoon. You don't stop the meal, you don't to bench, you don't continue the meal, you put on a mappa, peiris mappa, you put down a cover on the table, umikadish, and you make kiddush in the middle of your meal. That's how we pass it. Can eat snacks. Kitzonim are cakes. Or all sorts of fruits and stuff. Erev Pesach before nightfall. Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya sacha v'tzacha. So Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya went to the mikveh. Sacha means he swam. Went to the mikveh Erev Pesach. V'tzacha, he was thirsty. Shoel Rabbi Mona. So he said, ask Rabbi Mona, begin. It should be da'ana tzachi. Since I'm thirsty, ma'al nishte, can I drink? Even though it's Erev Pesach. Malaysia said no. Aha. Fine, Rabbi Chia also l'adam litom klum at shetechsha. Can't taste anything till nightfall. So the two of Yerushalmi, the Amud who is it here? The two of Yerushalmi in the bottom would say water. Of course, you could drink. It was talking about wine. Okay, it was more machmir not to drink wine in Erev Pesach. Okay, but in any event, Pasha said you're not allowed even to drink. Rabbi Levi said, very famous Gemara. Oichel matzah Erev Pesach, so he eats matzah Erev Pesach. Kibala rusasa beis chamiv. It's like you have relations with your fiancée while she's still in her father's house before you have chuppah. And remember, some relations with his fiancée, his father in his house, he gets flogged. So don't. You forgot? Okay, she'll get it right elsewhere. Okay, it's over. Is it over? Oh, okay. So it's good that you didn't tell her. Fine. Okay, square. Tani Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseir Omer. Now, by the way, the Rav Yoah says that why is like boil sasa beis chamiv? Because he says a kala is only mutter to her husband after sheva brachos, and a matzah is only mutter after you make 7 brachos in the Seder night. The Meiser Rokeach says that a kala is only mutter to her husband after you make 10 brachos. And matzah only is mutter to Seder night after you make 10 brachos. The cheshbon doesn't work out like either of them. But it does work out, in my opinion. I was saying this to Moshe Soloveitchik now. He was trying to be miyashi of them. But that doesn't work out. The cheshbon does work out that both are 9 brachos. Because under the chuppah there are 9 brachos. 2 for kiddushin and 7 for nisuin. And the night of Pesach are also 9. Kiddush. 2 brachos by Kiddush, right? 2 brachos by Kiddush. Shechianu, Karpas, second kos, Asher Golanu, Ntilas Sedayim, Ma'amotzi, and Matzah. So 9 and 9 works out. I don't know where they get the 7 and 10. You try figuring it out. So yeah, maybe it's have to hold it. All right, but there aren't 10 brachos under the chuppah. That's a problem. Not 10 brachos of the chuppah, they're only 9. All right. But they're restraining me. You got to figure out a way to be miyashim. Says we're tired. Rabbi Yehuda B'Meseira Omer bein chometz and matzah. So now to eat neither chometz nor matzah nor Pesach in order to eat properly with a geschmack that night. Rabbi lo yochel lo chometz lo matzah. Lo matzah min adod Rabbi Levi. Now he didn't eat matzah for that which Rabbi Levi said about boil arusasa beis chomet. A lot of the Rishonim are going to take out this line because Rabbi Levi was his Talmud. But I don't see what's so difficult. His Talmud could have expressed what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi himself taught him. The reason I take out is because of the next line. Because it says, Lo chometz min adod Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So it says you didn't eat chometz because of that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. So for Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Talmud, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, what do you mean? Was Rabbi the student of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira that they had to give covers to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira? Lo Talmud the Rabbi Yaakov bar Kudsei Ave. Rabbi was Rabbi Yaakov ben Kudsei. So why didn't he eat chometz in Erev Pesach? Let him eat chometz in Erev Pesach. So it says more El Begin Dava Bechor. Here is the Bechor for Tainis Bechoris. It's right here in the Gemara. There is no Bechor in Bavli. He says rather Rabbi fats in Erev Pesach, not because it's giving cover to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Shita, but rather because he was a Bechor, and a Bechor has to fast Erev Pesach. Says the Gemara, all right, Tanchuma Lo Minado. Not because of that, which Mash Rabbi Tanchuma didn't hold of this custom of Bechor's to fast.
Why not?
Rav Yonah, my tata, have a Bechor, he was a Bechor, but just eat her Pesach. So Smash, he didn't hold the middle. And Rabbi Tanchuma Lo Minato, Taka Rabbi did not refrain from eating Erev Pesach because of Tainis Bechoros, Elo Minado, because of this. Rabbi eats nisava. Rabbi was very sensitive, had sensitive stomach. Remember, he had stomach problems for 13 years of his life because he didn't have rachmanis on the calf, which was being brought to slaughter. So stomach problems for 13 years. So since he was very, very had a lot of problems, if he ate during the day, he couldn't eat at night. So therefore, he wouldn't eat during the day before Pesach in order to be able to eat matzah that night. Therefore, why to eat now during the day? Because she should be Pesach or Matzah. The Taiva, in order that she come into Matzah or Pesach, not Shabbos when he's Misaveh. Amar Rav Levi. Rav Levi said, this is why you have to recline. Going to the next part of Mishnah, which says you have to recline. Slaves eat standing or sitting straight up. However, here we eat reclining to express that we left Avdus and went into Cherus. Rabbi Simon Shimon Levi said, the kazayis a person eats on Pesach, so he has to eat a reclining. Rabbi Yossi Boy Kumi Rabbi Simon, what about Afilu Eved Lifnei Rabo? If he's a slave servant in the household, before his Rebbe, does he have to recline? Afilu Shlivnei Ba, what about a woman eating in the house of her husband? Does she have to recline? So he said it should be Rebbe, my great one, O master, Adkan Shamati. What I said over is what I heard. I didn't hear what's the halacha by a wife in the presence of her husband or by a slave in the presence of his master. Now, next we mentioned Minat Tamchui. That's the next part of the Mishnah. You have to take in wine Minat Tamchui. It's not even pleasant for a person to take money from charity to buy food. Here we're going even further, but kind of feeling the even more degrading thing of going to a soup kitchen to get your wine and matzah for Pesach night. You gotta do it. You need it to be Mekayim the Seder. First has to make his wife and kids happy and Yotif. By Samchon has to make them happy. But wine. By Biramer, no. Nashi Baroilem, Ktani Baroilem. Every way for that, suitable for them, as all your Tovim, not just Pesach. Nashi Baroilem, Kigon Misanim, Korban Eda says it's shoes. The Lieberman has Girsa Bisanim, which is a type of linen garment, the Tzultzlin, and the fancy belts. Uktani Baroilem, and children that would suitable them, Gon Agozim, Veluzim, nuts and sweets. They said,
I mean, I have a Rabbi Tarfon became Rabbi Tarfon did that again, as I said, every year at Yontif, not just Pesach. Every Yontif, that was the Simchas Yontif for his mishpachis to make sure they all have it. Minay Larba Kosa, we know what are the 4 cups are. The Bavli never tells us, if I remember correctly. Maybe it does tell us the Arbel choice of Gula, but it doesn't tell us the rest of the things which we see here. But I don't remember. Minay Larba Kosa Gula, I don't think so. Rabbi Yom Shem Rabbi Benoy is saying on Argaba Gulos. Neged Arbel shows of Guna. Chenem or Mesa Ani Hashem Votzeisi Eschem V'Goymer V'Lakachti Eschem Li'Lam V'Goymer Votzeisi V'Tzati V'Gati V'Lakachti. There are 4 choices of Gula. Now here Lieberman brings down that there's some people who showing him who had the Gerson Yerushalmi of a 5th cup Keneged Ve'Vesi. And then in fact the Goyim in Bavel used to have a shita to drink the 5th cup. So he brings down that there's some people who had such a Gerson Yerushalmi, but he couldn't find any in the manuscripts. Rabbi Shimon Levi Amar Keneged Arba Koisa Shel Paro in the dream. Because Paro B'Yodi V'Eschado So Kaus Paro Fetin Esakosa Ka Paro V'Nosata Kos Pinka Paro. 3 in the dream, 1 Yosef told him an interpretation. But in Parshas Vayeshev, one before Miketz. Miketz was after the dream. The Vayeshev. The end of Vayeshev. No, Miketz. No, this is the dream of the Sar Mashkemel, the cup of Paro.
Oh, the Sar Mashkemel.
Okay, Rabbi Levi Amar Keneged Arba Malchus. The 4 Malchus, Mitzrayim, Bavel, Yovan, and Bavel, Yovan, Mitzrayim, Bavel, Modai, Yovan, and Romi. Thank you. Rabban Amar Keneged Arba Kosa Shapuranos Shosia Kosh Baruch Lashkosu Masola. The 4 cups of Puranos God is going to give the nations the world. Ki Kormar Shaluk Yisrael Elai. The cup of anger. The cup against Boda. Menas kosam, that's the portion of their cup. Menas kosam, Rabbi Avin Amar Difle Putrin. It's a double cup which you drink after you go to the bathhouse to cool you down. It very much penetrates your body. So to the cup of Puranus, which the Goyim will get Losilavo, is a penetrating cup of Puranus, of bad things. Kidupli Putlin, Putirin Achar Merchotz. Ukenegdan, corresponding them, Asa Koshbaruch Lashkos Yisrael, Arba Koisa Shal Nechome, 4 cups in Nechoma. Hashem and Aschelki V'Kosi, that's 1. Dishata B'Shem and Roshi, Kosi Ravaya, that's 2. V'Hodein, and this one, Kos Yeshuos Esa, Yeshuos Train. So you get 4 altogether. Time and team learned over there. Now the truth is, the rest of the sugya, tomorrow night. We'll see tomorrow night. We'll stop here because it's a new sugya. The next whole Amid and a half is actually taken from Gemara and Shkolim. It's the same duplicate in Shkolim and Yerushalmi as well.